Hello everyone, and welcome to the 19th rip-off episode of Analyzing Evil, featuring Dimitri Rascalov from Grand Theft Auto 4. Before Micah Bell took the cake on detestability, Dimitri Rascalov was the ultimate example of a hateable villain. Niko Bellic's monologue in the deal ending was a perfect way to sum up Dimitri to his face, but it was only brushing the surface. Because at the end of the day, Dimitri may be a simple villain when it comes to a lack of morals, but I think it's still worth explaining. Before we begin, I like to mention that this video as it exists would not be possible without the professional's own analysis on Dimitri Rascalov. So thanks, your video was very informative. With that being said, I will try to word things in my own way and make the analysis more self-contained and without showing cutscenes extensively. So let's begin. Now, when it comes to Dimitri's past, there's not a whole lot we know. Dimitri was born in 1969 in the former Soviet Russia, which would make him around 39 by 2008, which is when Grand Theft Auto 4 takes place. It's commonly shown throughout the story with many characters that they left their home countries and immigrated to the United States for a better life, being known as the land of opportunity. While Dimitri's early life is not known, we do know that he spent a lot of his life in Russia. Russia in Soviet times was a harsh country, and being locked in a high-end prison, his lack of morality could come from anywhere. We do know that Dimitri has at least one relative, as he mentions that his cousin is Kenny Petrovic's boyfriend. More on that in a bit. But any care for his cousin is absent aside from that. If I had to guess though, Dimitri Rascalov has little family, as stated by Niko Bellic, and was molded by the tough environment he lived in to the fullest extent. Although I will say that there is something wrong with himself all on his own. So with that being said, in prison, he befriended Mikhail Faustin, who genuinely considered him as a brother in arms, and saved him from other prisoners who wanted to do some very non-consensual things to him. In his entire appearance in the game, it's shown that Dimitri has absolutely no care for anyone, no matter how much others helped him and considered him their friend. You see, it may not be super obvious to pick up, but Dimitri is mentally a psychopath, while Faustin is more of a sociopath. The difference between the two is despite them both having screwed up minds, Faustin was partially empathetic and had a code of honor. He was extremely unstable and abusive, but he had some capacity for personal morals. He had a broken mind, but he had some integrity despite being a criminal. But here's the thing, Faustin was only so broken because of Dimitri. It's not super obvious unless you paid close attention to the dialogue, but Dimitri having no good in him whatsoever almost dragged Faustin down to his level. But keep in mind that I said almost. As bad as Faustin got, he still maintained a core set of principles despite being around Dimitri for decades. It's also very likely that Dimitri couldn't mold Faustin into what he wanted him to be completely, so he schemed to betray him. The only way Dimitri wouldn't have betrayed him is if Dimitri had something to gain from Mikhail over backstabbing him. I think it's also worth noting that Mikhail Faustin all along knew deep down what Dimitri Rascalov was like, but trusted him too much because of all they went through together. And he shows Niko that he got a tattoo on his hand signifying that he and Dimitri were brothers for life, a tattoo that Dimitri completely lacks, symbolizing how one-sided their relationship was. In the mission where Niko kills Faustin for Dimitri, Faustin himself completely understates Dimitri's treachery. I remember he yells out when the player chases him that America made Dimitri greedy, which I don't think is true. He was always greedy. America was just the path to make more money. Even in his last appearance, Mikhail is completely distraught that Dimitri betrayed him, but I don't think even he realized how unempathetic Dimitri was before he died. He warned Niko that Dimitri would turn on him too, but I don't even know if he could truly comprehend in that moment that Dimitri would do things like kidnap and torture Roman, taunt Niko at every turn, and his scummy actions in the deal ending. You might also recall that Faustin states that he was too kind, and he let both Dimitri and Niko slip for so long. And in hindsight, that is heartbreaking. I noticed that with everything, Dimitri is patient to an extent. He waited years before deciding to get Faustin killed by Niko, and with Niko, he played the long game too. He gained Niko's trust by pretending to be the voice of reason. Dimitri cleverly always deflected blame onto Faustin in front of Nico, and both Faustin and Nico fell into his trap. Take the mission where Faustin orders Nico to kill Lenny Petrovic. Dimitri only mentions to Nico that he was the son of a major crime boss after Nico has done the deed, instead of before. He deliberately alluded to Faustin about someone ratting them out, so that Faustin would blame Lenny. There's even a mid-mission phone call where Nico can call Dimitri, and he still doesn't give out the necessary bombshell. It was all part of Dimitri's plan. Make Faustin look bad in front of Nico, and coerce Nico into doing everything for him. The only real help Dimitri put into the assassination of Mikhail Faustin was giving Nico some body armor to protect himself, but even that was just to ensure that his plan succeeded. Nico, if anything, was a survivor, and Dimitri, when ratting him out to Ray Bulgarin, was confident that he would be killed, just like Faustin. This confirms that he thought himself above everyone. The only person he did not betray was ironically Bulgarin, but it's easy to conclude that it was purely for pragmatic reasons, because Bulgarin was more powerful than him, and he would lose everything including his life if he screwed him over. It also wasn't like he didn't have someone else to screw over when he was collaborating with Bulgarin, and this leads me to something else. Dimitri is a hardened sadist who enjoys the suffering of others, and this is what actually led to some bad decisions that led to his ultimate downfall. While Dimitri succeeded at hurting Nico, either alive or posthumously depending on the ending chosen, it was his stimulation from seeing Nico suffer that really screwed him in the end, because toying with Nico is far less effective in the long term than just finding a way to get rid of him. In the revenge ending, Nico decides that he values vengeance over money, and he personally goes out of his way to hunt down Dimitri. Dimitri's first response is to tell Nico he'll be screwing others over if he's killed, as if he actually cared about Jimmy Pecorino. When Nico tells Dimitri that he doesn't care whatsoever, and Dimitri realizes he has no more cards to play, he pathetically pleads for his life, and by extension the player, do not fall for his excuses. Dimitri was only looking out for Dimitri, and he tried absolutely everything to ensure his survival, at least in the short term. I say this because Dimitri did not have a long-term plan. Even if the deal ending is picked, he still dies, as Nico is pushed over the edge completely by Dimitri sending an assassin to Roman's wedding. He gets the assassin specifically to tell Nico that Dimitri Rascalov sends his regards. He wanted Nico to know that he was screwed over right before he died. Of course, Roman instead was killed, and Nico goes out of his way to hunt him down. So either way, his lifespan was only slightly extended. Nico was correct to say that the survival of the fittest mattered a lot to Dimitri, as that can essentially be described as Dimitri Raskalov's code. He was a psychopath with no empathy, but knew how to pretend he had a lot, and at the end of the day, he caused a lot of suffering to a lot of people, criminal or innocent. He refused to care for Faustin's family after having him killed, and that is terrible because in the criminal game, he was still obligated to support Faustin's family post-betrayal. But he instead took Faustin's assets and left his family with nothing. By extension, it's revealed in The Lost and Damned that Johnny was forced to kidnap Roman to save his ex-girlfriend from death. Johnny in that respective mission tells Dimitri's goon that he's not in the kidnapping business, and even tells the Russian crook to go easy on Roman, showing how Johnny too had empathy and care for those close to him, even Roman Bellic, whom he knew squat about, because he only kidnapped him to save his ex-girlfriend, even though her addiction and problems with Dimitri Rascalov were completely her fault. With that being said, that's an overview of Dimitri Rascalov. A scheming, treacherous man who didn't think twice about betrayal, but thought a million times on how to use his silver tongue to manipulate others. The reason he is absolutely the most evil villain in Grand Theft Auto, and why he defies the already high moral standards of the series, is because arguably the second most evil villain, Frank Tenpenny, was at least upfront about who he really was to his enemies. He was a dirty cop and he knew it. Dimitri too knew he was a scumbag, but also thought it was okay to manipulate others and pretend to be someone else to hide his real nature. I suppose the only missing piece of his story is not knowing much about his early life, because only then could we fully uncover what caused him to be so cruel. That's completely up to speculation, if anything. Dimitri Rascalov, sadistic, ruthless, evil. Thank you for listening to this episode of Analyzing Evil. What do you think of Dimitri Rascalov? Leave your thoughts below. I'm JJ Plagiarisms, and until next time, what are stories but mystery boxes?